Welcome to another episode of Retrospective Gaming. In this episode, I am reviewing Divine Divinity. You know how reviews work. There will be minor spoilers. Let's get on to my review of Divine Divinity. After you pick your character, the story starts off in the town of Alaroth. After you pick your character, this is where you start off. It's a small town filled with people that have the ability to heal, so the town may be meager, but the inhabitants' skills are very useful. The elder of the town, Merendus, has gone crazy. So crazy that he actually mistakes his friend for an enemy and turns him to ice, so you have to save him. After you handle that situation, you're off to adventure, but something happens right after you leave the town. Right after you leave, you are attacked by a dragon rider. Apparently, you're an important individual. A marked one, and that's why evil entities are after you. You are saved and now have to deal with this dark evil group hell-bent on annihilation, destruction, and just pure carnage. And this is how Divine Divinity starts off. The story does have some generic tropes. Being one of the chosen ones, an evil force coming to ruin the day. But to be fair, we see these tropes in a lot of games. It's hard to come up with a truly unique original setting or plot, but it's also how you tell the story that defines your game. Divine Divinity does not take itself seriously, and it lets you know that immediately. You can be a funny fucking prick in this game. Your character truly can give no fucks in the way that you are able to talk to certain people. In one cutscene, this kid does a dirty deed for an evil dragon rider, and it's terrible because the dragon rider takes advantage of a desperate kid trying to get money to feed his family, and kills him right after the kid does a task for him. It's horrible, the kid just died. But the way they talk to each other, it's not even that serious. He literally tells the kid, "Hey sonny, money is money, sucker," and kills him. I admit, I chuckled at how silly their banter was, and you find this type of humor throughout the whole game. I witnessed talking bees and wasps arguing over a piece of territory, both sides trying to convince me they had the right to be in this area. I'm actually trying to do something important, and all of a sudden I have to deal with these wasps and these bees trying to make philosophical arguments about how they belong in this certain area. This is the type of humor that you get in this game. It's very odd, but it adds to the charm. If the story was just told in a serious manner without any humor or lack of it, it would have probably been dull or just dreadful. But the oddball humor really gives this game personality, and the story isn't as shallow as I thought it was at first. There is a decent amount of lore to go through about lords, demons, councils, and other stuff too. This is the type of humor that you get in this game. It's very odd, but it adds to the charm. If the story was just told in a serious manner without any humor or lack of it, it would have probably been dull or just dreadful. But the oddball humor really gives this game personality, and the story isn't as shallow as I thought it was at first. There is a decent amount of lore to go through about lords, demons, councils, and other stuff too. First time players will most likely stumble through some obstacles that will really test your patience, and that is part of every game. But I think there are some difficulty spikes with certain bosses that can be a pain in the ass, including one that I will talk about later. She who shall not be named. That fucking bitch. But I'll get to her later. I thought the main story was good enough. The type of humor and the game's consistency with telling this type of humor all the time really makes the story. If this was just another serious, good versus evil chosen one story, it wouldn't have worked. Thankfully, the humor saves it. It's not magnificent or phenomenal, but it made me laugh and kept me interested. It worked. Although once you do reach a certain point, it goes from utilizing story elements to just another dungeon crawler. And once you reach this point, there's not a lot of interesting stuff going on besides fighting, but I enjoyed the main story. I thought it was fun. I certainly raged at some parts, but Divine Divinity has a certain charm, and this game is not below making you a fool. For example, and this is a minor spoiler, so don't worry. Once you find a certain castle, you are reduced to being some child slave. Just because he is royalty, you have to stop what you're doing. You, one of the chosen ones, have to stop what you're doing and do some meaningless task like gathering flowers and finding a teddy bear. I laughed throughout this whole quest. And let me say this again, this game is not below humbling your character, one of the chosen ones, into the punchline of a joke or humiliate him or her for laughs. What a fucking thankless job. So if the main story of Divine Divinity was a road, it would start off a bit rocky, with some decent moments right at the beginning, and it would pick up very well right in the middle. It just gets very interesting. But at the end, that road gets a little bit bumpy again, which is fighting. But overall, if you invest enough time, especially with the side quests, it will get better and you will get your money's worth. Explore this world. This game is humorous from beginning to end, from the first conversation way down to the last cutscene. It keeps this humor, and that is where this game shines. It's a part of its charm. Now, when I look at side quests, when I explore the world, I look for games that don't have a whole bunch of get X amount or kill X amount of type quests. They're going to be there in most RPGs, but I don't want the game to be flooded with them like it's some MMO. And I was worried about that before I played this game because it's an action RPG. But thankfully, this game didn't disappoint me, and what really surprised me was the amount of multi-part quests. Some quests have different parts to them, and they're more than just your standard side quests in the game. Some of them take on a life of their own and become their own little sub-stories, and that's what I try to look for when I play RPGs, to see how many of those type of quests that they have in this game. And I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, with the amount of multi-part quests. Things like a murder mystery, drug dealing gone wrong that you have to find out at a later date, paranoid nights, and conflicts between certain races, and some very wacky stuff I'm intentionally leaving out. It's a big world filled with off-kilter strange humor that demands your time. So overall, while the story can start off a bit slow right at the beginning and becomes a straight-up dungeon crawl at the end, it's filled with enough humor, personality, and weirdness for me to get through it and enjoy it. Divine Divinity has been described as a Diablo clone because of its combat. It's an isometric action RPG where you do a lot of clicking. Combat is real time. Just click on an enemy to attack, use hotkeys and click spells to use them. The basic stuff, but I think to just call it a Diablo clone is unfair. Besides the look and combat, it's a different game. There is no fast travel. You earn teleportation scrolls which allow you to go to portals and teleport to certain areas, and I like this method of traveling. It's a good balance. You don't have to walk everywhere all the time, but you can't just click on an area and just travel there from anywhere, and you have to earn these scrolls. It's a good method of traveling. Now, this game can be a pain in the ass at certain parts, especially for first-time players that don't know the game. There are some difficulty spikes that will probably make your head spin. For veterans of the game, you're probably looking at me like I'm stupid, but it all depends on how much you level and what type of character you make. I tried to play as a pure mage, and looking back, I should have spent more skills in other things besides the mage chart. Specifically Curse, Identify, Hell Spikes, and some of the passive skills and some other stuff. And at first, this game seemed really hard. I tried to walk out and do some exploring, but I got mobbed by a ton of orcs and died immediately. Duh, of course I'm going to die. But later on, as I started to understand the game a little bit more and leveled up, I started getting more spells like Elemental Hail, and I got a little cocky. I could easily mow down mobs with just a few clicks, and if I ran into a boss or a tough enemy, just freeze them and kill them, or polymorph them into a weak little creature and just end their life. Then I hit a roadblock with one specific boss, she who shall not be fucking named. Up until then, I was getting through the game pretty good. I did get killed by some mobs, and some mini bosses required a bit of planning, but nothing too difficult. But this bitch was my weakness. She had a high resistance to my spells, and as soon as you try to fight her, you first have to get through a mob of tough enemies attacking you at once. So if you're a mage like me and you didn't invest in a little strength to wear some good armor, you better run back and forth in this small cramped area or you're going to die. To be fair, I will take part of the blame. It's not just a difficulty spike with this boss that's unfair to mages. I didn't create the best character. This was my first playthrough, and I played the game how I wanted to, which means I could have been smarter in how I planned my character or maybe looked up a guide. But I was just going through it blind, and I didn't invest in the best spells, and maybe I should have made my character a little bit stronger so he can wear some good armor, or invest in Hell Spikes or something like that to counteract her elemental resistance, or I could have invested in Curse so I can lower her resistances and take her down easier. But just like the Enclave mobs in Fallout 2, this can be considered a bullshit difficulty spike. but to me it doesn't matter much because I'm a masochist for tough RPGs. So while I raged a bit, and I do agree I think it's a bit bullshit, especially the way the area is and you're cramped, I like the challenge. You're gonna run into some bullshit moments, and this game will throw mobs and mobs and mobs of enemies at you. It's like they come out of the fucking ground out of nowhere. Dozens and dozens, but that really wasn't an issue for me for the most part. It's just some mobs and some bosses, which got me to the point where I felt like I couldn't make it any further. But I did. And here's some advice. The level cap in this game is the early 50s, and most RPGs have level caps, but you can finish the game way before you hit it. Not in this game. Especially if you're a first time player, level up as much as possible. Try to reach that level cap or get to it as much as you can. Kill a lot of enemies. Do as many quests as you possibly can. You need to level up in this game. Try to hit that level cap. It will take a while, but this is an RPG. Don't try to be a badass and take on bosses at low levels unless you know what the fuck you're doing. I enjoyed my playthrough as a mage, but I was disappointed with some of the spells in this game. I understand that there isn't much you can do with elements and other things, so you're gonna see spells like curse, summon, lightning bolts, etc. But a lot of it was just generic. I would have loved to seen a bit more creativity and especially more summons. I wish they would have taken out the vermin summon because that's fucking useless. Even if it's only a beginning spell, if you're only gonna have a certain amount of summons, don't waste it on something like vermin. I understand that it's a beginning spell, but if you're gonna have a weak summon that you can start off with, try to have something a bit more creative. There are some nice spells like Elemental Hail, Hell Spikes, and some other spells that let you take control of dead enemies, or you can reanimate them, and you can use these on mini bosses and certain bosses, so that's really fucking awesome. But I would have liked to seen a little bit more creativity. Now, no matter what character you pick, I do recommend trying to diversify your character a bit and explore other skill charts. You don't have to be a jack of all trades, but see what's out there. I tried to play as a pure mage, and I should have invested in some more stuff, especially the survivor skills. They're very useful, and no matter what class, you should check them out. There's also a neat little thing about skills. There's a path called Way of the Divine, and once you unlock this, you can get a bunch of cool different things. So there's always something to look forward to with that. It's not unlocked at the beginning, you have to earn it. There is a reputation system in this game, and you do have some choices that you can make, but it's nothing really deep. But it's an action RPG, so I wasn't expecting a bunch of depth with it, but it is in there. As far as technical issues go, this game did crash on me a couple of times throughout my playthrough. I don't know if it's due to me playing older games on newer hardware, but it did crash. And I also had this one weird problem where every time I pressed the Alt key to try to find certain items, they wouldn't appear and I just had to find them on my own, even though they were in the weirdest spots, but they would not show up whenever I would click the Alt tab. I did run into some other minor annoyances, but other than that, that's all I dealt with. My enjoyment with this game came from the game's world, the humor, the side quests, and just the way the game doesn't take itself seriously. I enjoyed it a lot. I have another minor criticism, this time with the level design. In certain areas and boss fights, you're packed into a tiny little area with no room to move. This normally wouldn't be a problem, but if I'm getting jumped by a bunch of enemies, I would like some room to move around since I'm a mage and I don't have a lot of health or the best armor. But sometimes you barely have 20 steps to move, and some areas have traps in them, but in one area in particular annoyed the fuck out of me because the way they were laid out, you don't even see it coming and you just walk through and get hit and die. And the way the camera angle is, I can't see anything on the ground. And that's just bullshit. That was just bad area design in that certain area. It's just a minor issue though. This game was difficult in certain areas, especially with some bosses, and I do think it does have some BS moments, but I'm a masochist when it comes to RPGs, so I didn't mind. If you play this, invest wisely and do as much as you can. But I had fun with the gameplay. It was really enjoyable. I had fun exploring the world of Divine Divinity. As you can see, areas are blackened out until you can explore it. I like this feature. It's a big world and you are free to explore it. You'll find caves, mobs of enemies, guilds, castle, farms, you know the usual, but there are also some interesting areas and secrets you can find out if you explore the game, and some of them are not in the main story, they require you to actually explore because it's a big world, but there are some very interesting little secrets. I don't want to spoil much, but I remember, I'm going to give you a minor spoiler because it's not really a big deal. I walked into this one area, and as soon as I clicked down this area, I think it was a well or a cave, I saw all these little gems and all these nice items, and I'm thinking, oh my god, I'm rich, I finally found this, I can sell all this stuff, I'm gonna be rich, I can finally afford some armor. If I get my strength up, I can get more potions so I won't be stuck using the fucking bed. But no, as soon as I tried to click it, they were boulders that made my character encumbered, so I had to take them out. I like how the game looks, especially in certain areas. For example, the Dwarven Halls is this building tucked away near a mountain, and once you get inside you see this huge areas with mines next to it, and you see statues and monuments. It's a fun place to explore, and the Cursed Abbey is nice too. But I won't go on telling you about every place I liked, just trying to keep it to minor spoilers. I do wish there were some more variety in general enemies. Mountain trolls look like normal trolls, and since you get mobbed by so many fucking enemies at once, you do see a lack of variety in general enemies. I didn't have that problem with bosses. I thought they look fine and they have cool designs. Now we have to talk about the music. The music in Divine Divinity is fantastic. I have always enjoyed the soundtracks in the Divinity games. The person who made them, and I can't pronounce his name so you're gonna have to look it up. He unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, but he deserves more credit than he gets. And I absolutely love the music that plays when you wander around, especially near the farm area. The track is called The Four Seasons Springing. I love it. The voice acting is, well, it's decent. It's not terrible. Trust me, listen to Gothic 1's English voice acting or Two Worlds. That is terrible. This is alright. I've always liked Zandalar. He always made me laugh, so his voice was fine, though I can't take him seriously at all. Overall, the world in Divine Divinity was fun to explore, and it rewards you for exploring outside of the main area. It's not just get X amount or kill X amount. There are secrets and interesting stuff to see. Not just secrets, but interesting secrets and nice side quests, especially the multi-part ones. Explore every single part on the map because you're going to need to, especially if you're a first-time player. Don't miss out on the secrets and quests. It's an RPG, so you're going to have to invest some time. Divine Divinity gets sort of a bad rep in certain circles for its difficulty spikes and some other things. I heard it referred to as the best shitty game ever. I think it's a good game, and it gave me more than what I was expecting. This game requires patience, especially for first-time players. Remember, there's a level cap, and I advise for you to hit it or get as close to it as possible. This is one of those games where you can't afford to try to beat everything at a low level because you think you're cool. No, first-time players, play the fucking game and explore. The humor is what gives Divine Divinity its charm, and someday I will make a better character with the lessons I learned from my first playthrough and make this game my bitch. But I beat it, and that's all that matters. I recommend it. You can get it nowadays on sale for like 89 cents or $2, so there's no excuse. Play this game, it's worth it. Thank you for watching. You know how to get into contact with me, so if you want to, leave a comment. You know how to do it. Have a great day.